Good evening and welcome. My name is Rennie Shufflin, and I'm the current director of the Honors College at California State University, Los Angeles. You have joined us this evening for the second of three events hosted by the college in celebration of our 10th anniversary. This evening, you are attending the first of what will be annual forums featuring distinguished guests who will help us to explore current events and issues that bear implications for society's future. We hope that you will make your attendance at these forums a part of your annual calendar events. And we're glad that you are with us this evening. Tonight's forum, entitled COVID as a Catalyst for Transformation, features distinguished Honors College and Early Entrance Program alumni who will draw on their varied professional and personal experiences to reflect on the future in light of our recent experiences with COVID-19. The forum will cover a range of topics, such as the impact of COVID on medicine and healthcare, and the interwoven issues of social justice, education, the economy, and the United States Constitution. Our moderator this evening is Dr. Trinh Pham, former director of the Honors College and the current associate dean of Cal State LA's new College of Ethnic Studies. Welcome back to the Honors College, Dr. Pham, and I pass the time to you.
I'm very excited to be serving as moderator for this panel event. I was the director of the Honors College for 4 years and was associate director for 2 years prior to that. And so for 6 out of the 10 years of the Honors College history that we're celebrating today, I had the privilege of working with Honors College students, faculty, and partners across campus. During my time in those roles, a few themes remained consistently important to myself personally and to other members of the Honors College community. These were sense of community and belonging. This has been cited by Honors College students and alums as one of the most important aspects of their time in the Honors College. I would often hear that the friendships developed and the connections made with the Honors College staff and faculty were significant and lasting. Another theme is valuing and engaging in interdisciplinary collaboration. Recognizing that collaboration across disciplines enriches our learning, broadens our perspectives and understanding of others, and generates a space to create and implement ideas that better meet the needs of the people we are trying to serve. A third theme is seeing ourselves as possessing the ability to be change makers. This includes exploring what is important to us as individuals and as members of society, and contributing to positive change in our communities, whether they be local, regional, or global communities. I truly believe we all already possess the ability to engage in significant transformative change, or perhaps already have. I could go on and discuss many other themes important to the Honors College experience, but I think these most directly relate to the topics at hand that our panelists will be discussing today. For example, one of the most significant challenges of living during a pandemic is grappling with feelings of increased isolation and feelings of disconnection from our loved ones and our communities, which is layered on top of the deepest grief and loss for many. But along with the challenges have also come opportunities to engage with others in ways we may never have before. Interdisciplinary conversations and collaborations have different meaning when we must work together to ensure our own safety and well-being, as well as that of others. And in myriad ways, we are forced to become more inventive and creative in how we go about contributing to positive change, since our usual means are frequently no longer available to us. So as we turn to our panelists, I'd like to request that these themes of community, interdisciplinary collaboration as a means to generate creative solutions, and drawing upon our talents to create transformative change are kept in mind, as we intend to both reflect upon the present and past in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic, but also want to keep an eye on the future and the potential for positive and lasting change as a result of our adaptation to this difficult moment in history. So with that, I would like to introduce our panelists. We have joining us Luis Antesana Alba, who is a graduate of the Honors College at Cal State LA, was an alum from 2015. Luis earned his Bachelor of Arts degree in political science. He currently works at Abraham Lincoln High School as a Denver Scholarship Foundation college advisor. Luis is also the founder of Juntos to College, which is a career planning platform for undocumented high school students. Welcome, Luis. Our next panelist I will introduce is Cynthia Calhoun. Cynthia also graduated from the Honors College in 2015. She graduated in the same year as Luis. She earned an AA degree in English and a Bachelor of Arts in Social Work at Cal State LA. She's currently the Decedent Affairs Officer at VA Loma Linda Medical Center. In that role, she's responsible for generating the electronic death certificates to be submitted to the state of California for veterans who pass away at the medical center. And she also releases the decedents to the mortuaries and funeral homes and counsel families regarding the burial benefits for deceased veterans and their families. Thank you, Cynthia, for joining us.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to invite our next panelist, introduce our next panelist, Dr. Paul Gowder. He is a graduate from the Early Entrance Program at Cal State LA from 1997. And just a very quick comment about the Early Entrance Program for those who are not familiar. It is a very unique program at Cal State LA that admits gifted students between the ages of 11 and 15. So they typically will skip high school, potentially part or all of middle school, and attend college full-time at Cal State LA. Dr. Gowder's primary training was at Harvard Law School, where he earned his JD. And he also earned a PhD at Stanford in political science. And he's currently a tenured professor of law at Northwestern University Pritzker School of Law. I hope I said that correctly. Welcome, Dr. Gowder. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce Dr. Susanna Sabin. She graduated also from the Early Entrance Program in the year of 2014. She studied anthropology. She was an anthropology major at Cal State LA. She earned a PhD in biology, focusing on ancient microbial genomics, during which she utilized ancient DNA to study ancient human oral and gut microbiomes and the evolutionary history of tuberculosis. Currently, she is finishing up her time as a postdoctoral researcher at the Center for Evolution and Medicine at Arizona State University, during which she has continued pursuing questions about the evolution of tuberculosis. Welcome, Dr. Sabin. So thank you all to our panelists for joining us today and for providing your unique insights on this very important topic. So I will go ahead and get started with the first question, and please feel free to respond as you wish. So our first question for you would be to please describe what your professional day-to-day is like and how the pandemic has affected your work. For example, are there aspects of your work that have become more difficult and others that have become simplified?
Okay, well, I'll jump right in. So as a Decedent Affairs Officer, I am responsible for the veterans who pass away at the hospital and for information for veterans who pass outside of the hospital, counseling the families as to their burial benefits and so on and so forth. When the pandemic hit, my calls from the outside tripled. The deaths that were reported by the coroner's office, by other hospitals, by social workers at other sites, doctors at other sites, it was overwhelming at one point. And basically, I got so many calls that it broke my phone, my voicemail, because I was getting sometimes over 100 calls a day reporting deaths. Throughout the state, some outside of the state. The thing that did get easier is that I didn't have to go to meetings. We could Zoom into meetings. Things became a lot easier to assess because we were put into situations where a lot of the things that I would have to go outside of my office to do, I could, actually Zoom in or do an email because we were social distancing. So that was the upside of it, but the downside was just the large amount of deaths that I saw when the pandemic hit and am continuing to see.
Cynthia, thank you for sharing. You're my cohort. It's one of the days, it's been a while and I miss you. And it sounds like you're doing
we get the chance to talk.
Important work. Yeah. Well, hi everybody, Luis Antesana. So I'm an educator, an entrepreneur, but when the pandemic hit, I do want to talk a little bit about my privilege in that role, because when the pandemic hit, I went remote. And what remote means is I wake up, I turn on my laptop, and I'm at work. And so I have two hats, right? As an educator, 8 to 4 p.m. And then 4 p.m. to about 9 p.m., I got my entrepreneur hat on. But, you know, in the mornings, it's usually, as a college career advisor, I meet with a lot of adults, a few students, but by noon and until 4 p.m., really my other work too, until much later, I just work with mainly students, a few adults. And what has absolutely like changed for kiddos is, well, let me give you some context. I work at a school that's 90% free or reduced lunch. And what that means is it's about 90% of our students are at the poverty line or below that. And so we saw massive drops of attendance all of a sudden. And it has been the hardest year to get students to think about college, to go to college. And so it absolutely has been a struggle. And nationwide, college applications, financial aid applications, applications have all dipped. So that's been my line of work in that sense. In addition, it's also been immigrant mothers who have been trying to get support for their students to get DACA, to just get some sort of you know, support. Now that the Trump era is over, it's definitely all been kind of moving towards DACA. And so seeing that as well, because you know there are no more in-person clinics, how can they get support when it's kind of scary to like talk to people in person? So lots of big challenges there, but the upside to that is that I will say my line of work has never been more accessible for students. Like I literally moved my entire college center, we call it a future center, and it is all online. So students have access to our supports 24/7. So, you know, whereas before, like they could only see me between 8 and 4 p.m. Now, like on the weekends, in the evenings, at midnight, for some of the students that want to work that late, you know, they can watch how-to videos for FAFSA, college applications, etc. All of that is accessible. So, you know, definitely a bit of both worlds.
I mean, I think for me, very much the same theme really applies. I mean, if I could describe in one word my professional experience with COVID, privilege absolutely would be that word. I mean, I have the incredible and, you know, frankly, unearned good fortune of being a tenured professor at a very wealthy university with an endowment measured in the billions. And it really shows that, you know, my job is research and teaching. The reacher said, you know, I'm curious whether Susanna asked to actually go in a lab, but when you're a legal theorist, my lab is a quiet corner with a laptop. And, you know, whether or not I can show up in person in the office doesn't really affect whether I can get to my lab. And the resources of a university like Northwestern have just been deployed in this kind of astonishing way to make it possible for me personally to do my job in ways that I know many others don't have good fortune. I mean, they rolled out a curbside pickup of library books system within what seems like minutes, simply because they have the resources to do so. And in a lot of ways, it's really laid bare to me as I hear not only from many of my students who have, struggles with classes, even at an elite school, because they have, maybe family members who are suffering personal impacts and that's weighing on them. And also when I hear in the legal profession from, so much of the rest of the legal profession has been profoundly struggling. In criminal law, many of my close friends have worried whether or not participating, for example, in the legal system as a public defender is going to expose them to the astonishing COVID hotspots in our nation's prisons, which are incomprehensibly bad. And the last generation of law school graduates who graduated in 2020 found themselves contemplating taking the bar exam, not merely with fear for whether or not they pass, but with fear for their lives, given that state bars systematically failed to figure out how to manage the bar exam in COVID. And so, yeah, to my standpoint, really sort of conjoined feelings of gratitude and unbelievable guilt for the level of career economic privilege that I enjoy at this time.
Very similar to Paul and Luis, I have the privilege of working remotely. And so I'm currently a postdoctoral researcher on a fellowship, which basically meant that I could do whatever I wanted to do as long as I produced some sort of publication, which I'm scrambling to do now. But a way in which the pandemic changed my career trajectory, probably entirely, along with probably many academics, was the cancellation of conferences, as well as limited access to campus and campus resources and laboratories. And so where I thought I was starting a job where I would be doing 50% lab work and 50% computational biology work, I ended up doing 100% computational biology. So I've really honed my coding skills lately. But I think probably one of the most profound, well, two of the most profound changes for me personally were, firstly, I really kind of had a reckoning with myself and all the resources. Genomics is a resource intensive form of research. And I started to question whether sequencing old DNA was a way that I wanted to use others' resources and my own time on the planet. And so I started working with a public health team on the Arizona State University campus, and being completely remote allowed me to be as close to two places at once as I could possibly be. And so in a sense, I was able to kind of split my attention in a way I would not have been able to do had I needed to run across campus to different meetings or sit down in a call center or something like that. And so that's something I'm really grateful for. At the same time, I've now had the experience of working with people I've never met in person, which is astonishing. And we all really miss each other. Social drinking is big in academia. I don't know if anyone is familiar with that, but that's been very missed, I know, by the labs I've worked with closely. And again, just the lack of conferences and the lack of collaboration in what is already a very siloed world is going to have very disturbing consequences, I think, as we move forward in the sciences that we have to pay careful attention to.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. I had another question, which I think the responses that you've given so far has given us a sense of your day-to-day and kind of a little bit of an intimate window maybe into the experiences that you've had so far. For the next question, I'd like to maybe step back a little bit and take a somewhat broader view and ask whether you can share your thoughts on the broader impact you think that the pandemic has had on your field, your discipline, the sector that you're working in. For example, do you see broader impacts at even regional, national, or international levels? So if you have any thoughts to share on that, that would be much appreciated.
Well, because I work with deceased veterans, the impact has been major. Mortuaries, funeral homes, crematoriums are at capacity. So, you know, it's almost surreal. They have warehouses that have, I was just speaking with a colleague right after, from a mortuary, and right after Christmas, they opened up a warehouse. It was a refrigerated warehouse for the overflow of coroner's office deaths and mortuaries, and it housed 1,200 bodies. Within 2 weeks, it was at capacity. And so they're scrambling to find refrigerated places to put bodies. Many of the funeral homes are now, if they have gift, they're bringing in mobile morgues, and their gift shops are turning into refrigerated areas for bodies. It's really all kind of surreal when you speak with them, and a family, let's say, can have a death, but because the mortuaries are at capacity, they're calling me to let me know that family has engaged them to take care of the final arrangements for their loved one. However, it may be 4 to 6 weeks before they even come to take custody of the body. And so the VA is holding on to our deceased a lot longer and storing them because the mortuaries just don't have the space to hold them. And so that's been really surreal. Family members, I'm telling them now, if you have someone who's actively dying or someone you feel is terminal, you need to contact mortuaries now, because some of them are not able to even take new families. And people are going as far as, I'm in Loma Linda, they're going to Los Angeles to get a mortuary that can take their loved one. So it's been a game changer in the whole industry, and especially with regard to those people that have decided, the families who have decided that they want to cremate, because crematoriums, some of them will not take COVID-19 patients. So that's been a game changer with regard to crematoriums, and just a lot of different rules from public health and the state that have gotten hospitals and like ours at the point where we're having to bring in 3, sometimes 4 mobile units just to house and store the deceased that have passed away maybe a month ago, because the family, you know, can't take custody until the mortuary has room, even with the crematoriums, to take custody of the body. So that's been a real game changer in this industry.
For education, public education, you know, speaking about the at least high school level, you know, many of us know high school as the pillar of the community, where we see at least, you know, middle, upper class families see it as a place where kids thrive, right? But for immigrant and lower class communities, it is it's more than that. That's literally where they get their breakfast, their lunch, because their parents may only be able to afford one meal a day. And so when the pandemic hit, you know, the schools were absolutely closed, but the district had the, you know, the food still going, you know, so all of our staff, you know, that prepares all the food, they were still working. They set up pickup stations where families can go and families lined up. Plenty of families, you know, they weren't going to school, you know, they're trying to figure that part out, but they were picking up their food. And so it's been a year, almost exactly, well, yeah, in next month it'll be a year since that happened to my school, this Denver Public Schools. And so, but since then, since we kind of like figured it out, you know, I figured it out, right? We just seen, I have seen a massive gap in, we know about the education gap, but I want to talk about the technology gap that is just exponentially widening for immigrant students, first-gen students, and any student who didn't have access to technology in their kind of earlier years. It's been extremely difficult for them to kind of adapt. And I, you know, I was, as I was connecting here, you know, me being part of this connection, they asked me like, hey, make sure you turn off all of your other systems so your bandwidth is good. And it made me think like, I know exactly how many megabytes I get in my household, right? But our students have like connections that are like 5 megabytes, 10 megabytes for a family of 4+, which, you know, they say the average, like one person for one, you know, one piece of technology should get around 10 megabytes of internet per second. And that's what they have in a family of 4 or 5. So their internet like doesn't work. They get kicked out of their classes. Can you imagine that happening in a math class, science class? I mean, some of you may imagine this, it may have happened to you as well. But that is super real for our 9th through 12th graders. And all of a sudden they're behind in class. And so when I meet with students, it is very common for me to just find students who are just exhausted and constantly telling me that they are not good enough. And so why am I telling them to go on to college when they feel that the experience they're having right now, is also going to be an extension of college, right? When they get there, so it's also going to be like just like a really bad experience. And so, you know, the technology gap is very, very real. Now, I still meet with students who, you know, have Apple laptops. We're still making it happen. The students who are struggling with their Wi-Fi, like we're still making it happen, you know, but that technology gap is just, you know, I met just past week, I met with a student. We were doing his FAFSA. It took much longer than it would because of just waiting, you know, latency, just breakdown of communication. But we finally finished the FAFSA, we got to the end, and their parent was undocumented, which is very common in my school. And so they had to print out the final page and they had to mail that off. And they did not have a printer. And I asked them, do you have any family or friends nearby who can print this for you? They said, no, mister, it's a small family. And then I asked them, like, would it be possible for you to go to like a Staples at home office? No, mister, it's not possible. And, you know, those situations like absolutely break my heart, because if we were at school, they'd be my future center. We can just print a piece of paper, but at this point, they can't even get that to get their financial aid to go to college, you know? So it's like those situations that are very common. And so the technology gap is something that's just widening exponentially between the classes.
Yeah, there's a kind of surrealness, particularly hearing that to me, because, you know, as a professional school professor, you know, I have like 1 foot and 1 foot in the law itself. And in both cases, I'd say both fields really bounced back remarkably well internally, but did so in part by really externalizing a lot of the costs. I mean, when, you know, Luis talked about the FAFSA reform, all I could think about was, well, that's my people's fault, right? Like that is the fault of a bunch of lawyers who are sufficiently disconnected from the consequences of things like COVID, especially in low-income communities and in undocumented communities, to not attend to the fact that, hey, maybe it would be okay to ameliorate the bureaucracies a little bit. And that really does sort of capture a theme of my experience. Right? So universities, beginning of COVID, everybody was panicking, right? You know, universities were setting up Wi-Fi stations in parking lots, actually thinking about students who might have lack of access early on, at least. You know, there was an intense debate about virtual versus in-person and allocations of relative risk and so forth. And then a lot of that mostly seems to have fallen away, at least, you know, at the universities that I'm mostly aware of, and not every university is the same with respect to this. More or less, people have started thinking, okay, this online thing, right, online teaching, we can kind of make it work. You know, online committee work, online research, even online conferences, and again, kind of make it work. I've actually started to notice my number of meetings has begun to increase beyond the the pre-COVID part, because people have finally gotten comfortable enough to just schedule continual meetings and have realized that because I don't need to leave my house, they can inflict them on me as much as they want. And I think similar stories can be told in the law side, right? I mean, large chunks, particularly what I could call, and this is a classification rather than a value classification, the elite sectors of the legal profession moved pretty quickly, right? I mean, there are lots of fancy courts that have successfully held Zoom hearings and were holding Zoom hearings very, very quickly. But then, of course, there's also a sector of the legal system that has people who are locked up, people who are facing immediate criminal consequences, or just people whose experience of the pandemic has been less smooth than in well-resourced professions, and whose conditions of operating within the bureaucracies that the law creates are not compatible with COVID without some changes. And I think both universities and the law have failed to come to that realization and to make those accommodations.
Yeah, I just to add, like making accommodations so that people can engage with each other virtually. I mean, I think it's absolutely necessary and is the start of something new. But I think a way that this new world has changed is the way people are managed and teams are managed, and the very nature of teams. And as someone in academia, it's very isolated. Collaboration is essential, but everyone is very much doing their own thing, at least in the sciences. Everyone is a cog that produces a paper with the head cog. And people, academics, I don't think they naturally gravitate towards new ideas very easily. And engaging in person was a way to break that. And I feel as if this new world is not conducive to broadening people's horizons. You can mute someone if you don't like their idea. And so, and in addition to that, in terms of going back to more of nitty-gritty day-to-day management of a team, I've been working with a really great team engaged in remote public health interventions, doing case investigations for COVID-19. And it's a wonderful team, but we're very challenged in maintaining transparency with each other and making sure everyone feels appreciated and heard, and making sure that everyone's ideas are heard equally, just because of meeting scheduling, and kind of trying to figure out how to subsection and delegate And it seems like a much smaller, you know, saying this, I feel very shallow compared to what Chris, Cynthia, and Luis have been talking about, especially, but I think it's going to be very important for us to learn kind of the sociology of Zoom and how we still maintain our humanity to each other. Zoom or asterisk insert video conferencing platform here to get anything done. So that's something I think needs to change and that we need to work on as a society.
And that actually, what Susanna just mentioned, some of her points, I think leads towards another question I wanted to ask surrounding this idea of collaboration. So what are your thoughts on the significance of collaboration, maybe both within and outside of your profession, in coping with and responding to the pandemic? What has been that significance of collaboration?
In my field, I believe it's essential because before the pandemic, there wasn't this overwhelming death rate. So the sheriff's, coroner's office, public health, they all, I would deal with them when I needed to. But now, because of the overwhelming death rate, I depend on them to collaborate with me to get basic things like death certificates done, because of the overwhelming amount of COVID-19 deaths on the death certificates. The coroner's office, when we have to report those to the coroner's office. And there have been so many reportable, communicable deaths that we now have to do the death certificates without reporting it to the coroner's office, because they don't have the staff to keep up with the responsibility of assigning coroner's numbers to those. So there's an extra step now where we have to get those death certificates out so people can get buried. And then we get a coroner's number for them later if they were somebody who passed away from COVID-19 pneumonia, or any other communicable death that needed to be reported to the coroner's office. So now we've got sheriffs helping with coroner's situations and vice versa, and the hospital making sure that outside deaths, outside the hospital, that we're assisting mortuaries to get doctors to complete those death certificate worksheets so that the mortuaries can generate death certificates. And it's not even something that a death that I've even handled, but I have become the mediator between mortuaries and doctors, and sometimes the coroner's office, to make sure that these death certificates get handled for these veterans and that the family members are able to bury their dead. Another thing that has happened with the onset of the pandemic is that a lot of the veterans, the older veterans who had misplaced their DD-214 or their discharge forms, they're needed if they want to have be buried at the National Cemetery. They need a DD-214, or if they want a honor ceremony, the flag folding and the gun salute, they need a DD-214. And the archives, that the pandemic has completely broken the archives, where you can't even get on the website. You can't get the phone number. And so people are scrambling. And so what Riverside National Cemetery and the Veterans Benefit Administration has done is come forward and say, okay, we will help them get a DD-214. so that they can bury their dead. So collaboration has been extremely vital in my industry.
And if anybody else wants to go, I feel like it doesn't have to be a pattern of like,
yeah.
Anybody else jump in.
And actually, while we have a pause for just, I may pause for just one moment to address our audience. As our panelists are responding to these questions, we are going to have a little time at the end for Q&A. So please do feel free already if you have questions that come to mind. There is a Q&A button that you'll see, should see at the bottom of your screen. So please feel free to go ahead and enter questions there, and we'll try to get to them at the end of the panel. So go ahead, Susanna. Thank you.
Just to go off what Cynthia was saying, I think I've talked about academic collaboration enough for one day, but this pandemic has shown us how under-resourced and underappreciated our public sector is. Just the things we take for granted all the time that keep our lives going, that keep, especially in the healthcare system. And just from my experience, at Arizona State University, the public health team I was working with, we came in to develop a volunteer surge force to help Maricopa County handle all the positive COVID-19 cases and do remote case investigations. And I'm very proud of that team. I'm very proud to have been even a small part of it, but I think the fact that that collaboration was ever necessary is a huge problem. We should not need to recruit 19-year-old volunteers to make these calls. We should have a well-paid, well-supported public health workforce, and all the public sector support workforces. And so kind of, I guess, twisting the question a little bit, the areas in which we've seen that collaboration is necessary from more privileged institutions, I think are just raising red flags all over the place in terms of how we need to better support our infrastructure as a country at every level.
I might kind of jump off of that one and almost go in the opposite direction from the legal standpoint, because I think so, law is a famously conservative profession, of course. And one way that that's been visible through the pandemic, and it maybe makes me sound a little bit like a broken record here, but is more or less a surprising, not surprising if you know the sociology of lawyers, surprising lack of what we could call collaborative innovation among the law, and particularly among the processes connected to the law. And so this goes even to very little things, right? So I bought a house last summer, well, last spring, I guess, right as COVID was starting. And I mean, I'm an actual lawyer, and I almost couldn't get it done because the frankly, idiocy of some of the processes that go into things like buying a house were just almost entirely incompatible with remote work, right? Like the things that I had to do to get notarized documents in the right place, there was no way to do things without notarized documents, because God forbid that in the law, the mere fact that there's a respiratory disease that people are dying from could cause us to come together and say, hey, maybe let's forget about going to the person with a little stamp to put it on the piece of paper, because the little stamp is sacred. And so they're like sacred little stamps just with this stymieing thing. There are photos of me eventually slipping paper through a car window with a friend who happened to be a notary, and just it's ridiculous stuff. But in its scales again to the profession-wide type things, right? So going back to the 2020 bar exam, there was just this months of struggle between 2020 graduates and all of these decentralized state bar examiners who first they were going to hold an in-person bar exam, but turns out nobody quite felt safe being in a conference room with hundreds of other people for 2 days straight, heaven forbid. And then they were going to do an online exam, but because they'd never actually built a technology procurement process, they ran to these like fly-by-night companies who all turned out to be incompetent / crooked. I mean, it was just this, again, this sort of failure to have a system for negotiated collaborative innovation. And it's really illustrated that we need that at every level in the law.
So Louisa, if you don't mind, I actually have a different question to ask you if you would like to answer this one, please. So do you see yourself as such, shifting gears a little bit to sort of a theme of leadership? Now, we did talk a little bit about collaboration. I think that leadership sort of has a role in some of these relationships that we work through. So do you see yourself as a leader in your professional and or your personal life? And has your perspective on your leadership abilities and potential changed as a result of the pandemic?
Yeah, great question. When I think of that, Dr. Pham, I actually think of an additional question. And it is this: if not me, then who? If not now, then when? And in some cases, it absolutely is me who's going to jump up to the plate, you know. And in other scenarios, it's not me. But in my line of work, it's definitely been, you know, it's kind of one of the reasons why I went on to entrepreneurship for me. You know, like you know, so I'm an educator. That's what, you know, keeps the lights on. Educator by trade. I've been in this profession for 6 years. And it was through working in low-income schools, you know, and seeing the same kind of students that I grew up with, and you know, going to LAUSD public schools, and seeing so many adults, like really good people, working their hearts out, yet so many kids falling through the crack, that I was like, man, what is going on here, you know? Because I would vouch for like all my teachers, you know, but like, and working, you know, 60+ hours a week, but students are still falling through the crack. And so then that's when I began to realize, okay, well, what's going on? And for me, I narrowed in on the technology gap. I narrowed in on the fact that there are so many kind of systems that are just very weak or non-existent when it comes to uplifting students from lower class communities or immigrant communities. And so particularly, I kept focusing on undocumented students, right? I have DACA, you know, I'm a undocumented professional with DACA. That's how I've been working. Very grateful for it. But so many students don't qualify for DACA, right? So my line of work, I've been supporting so many undocumented students who just don't have access. And so I was looking at, okay, how can we support these kiddos? And there was just, you know, it came to a point where I was like, man, I've been in education for 4 or 5 years, and like no one has come to help out undocumented students. Why do I keep waiting? Like, screw it, I'm just gonna do it. You know, I'm not gonna wait for any type of a savior from a different community who maybe has funds to come in. Nope, like I'm just gonna do it. And if that means, you know, like I'm gonna spend extra hours on it, then, you know, if not me, then who? And so so that's kind of, so for me, like I took that on, and this started in October 2019, when I was like, can we build a piece of technology that can support undocumented students wherever they're at? You know, because it was me having to educate so many counselors across my school district, across the states. And so I was like, can you know, and I wanted to expand my impact. So like, can we tap into technology? And then the pandemic hit. And I was like, holy crap, like if my app was done now, like it would save so many counselors' lives, you know? And so the pandemic actually exacerbated kind of the need for me to be like, dude, you got to focus on this, and you got to, you know, put some hours, get it right, test it, let's see how it goes. And so for me, that's kind of what it's been like, you know, in terms of like problem solving this insane problem, pandemic. We've been trying to figure it out. And cannot say that I have the solution, right? But I'm trying, and we're helping people. You know, we'll see if the model works. If it does, then we're going to get more kids to access upward economic mobility. If it doesn't, then I can't say that I didn't try.
Absolutely. And I also had a question for you, Cynthia. So I think that the work that you've been doing strikes me as something that's quite challenging, that you have to deal with on a regular basis. And I wondered whether you had any just perspective or tips or anything that you could share with the rest of us to give us insight on how do you actually cope in the midst of such great difficulty in the job and the role that you play. Is there anything that you can share with us to give us some sense of how you cope with those difficulties?
Okay, for me, because I'm a woman of faith, I have to pray to get through the day, because my job is, you know, from the time I walk into the door, it's about death. And by the time I leave, it's been about death, and it can be really, and it's really sad work. And so I have just really learned to talk to an objective third party, and really find the time to find joy in all of this sadness, you know. Reach out to family members, reach out to friends, you know, check on people, see how they're doing, go on Zoom calls and just support those who are in the house. I am a first responder, so I can't work from home. So, because I also work in the emergency room as well as administrator of the day, so on some weekends. And so the responsibility sometimes of running the hospital falls on the shoulder of the AOD, or the administrator of the day, which is me sometimes, when we have problems with, sometimes we have civilians who have to be transported from hospitals because they're at capacity. And so we have to give up some ICU beds, and we've increased our COVID units from 1 to now there's 4. And so you just learn to find the joy, and realize that, you know, you've been extremely fortunate. I've been extremely fortunate. I work in the healthcare industry, and many of my colleagues have gotten COVID. Some of them have passed away. And so for me, it's the joy in talking to my grandchildren who are in LA, and I can't always go see them because we're social distancing, or just talking to groups of women who just want to know how to keep their children happy, you know. And me as a parent and a grandparent, I get on those Zoom calls and start talking about finding the joy in the midst of all of this, because I have to pick my head up and go in at, you know, 7:30 in the morning. Sometimes I'm there at 6:30, because I basically have a very somber job that people aren't knocking down the door to get, because I also have to go into the mobile morgues and the house morgue now, count bodies, take names. There are people, we have a large homeless community, and family members find out that their family member is missing from that corner that they usually see them on, and and they're ending up in our morgue. So I get those calls, and you know, it's hard sometimes, because I also have to take in-person meetings with families who just lost someone to COVID. inside the hospital. So the chaplain brings that person to me, and I have to, you know, kind of sit there through their grief because they just lost this person, and talk about happy things, you know. So I will engage them about their loved one and who they were, and get them to talk about that loved one that they've lost before we start talking about, well, here's the burial benefits, you know, here's what you need to do, here's who you need to contact, because I have to have those hard conversations with them. And so I just urge people to find the joy, look for the joy in all of this sadness. Find something that you like to do and do it in a group, you know, have Zoom cooking classes, or whatever you find joy in doing. Share it with a group of people, and it usually will bring a smile to your face.
So believe it or not, we're out of time, pretty much. Almost just one, if anyone wants to throw out just a quick thought, just to kind of wrap this out, wrap this up. And so just thinking about the future, we've talked about a lot of the challenges, and Cynthia has shared some positive ways that she thinks about things. Are there any opportunities for the future that you think the adaptation to the pandemic has created? So when you think about the future, what gives you hope and what lifts you up? So if you have like a really quick response to that question, please feel free to speak up.
I'll just say, and I know this is supposed to be positive, and I think it kind of is, but I've come to realize there's no greater inspiration than watching your most like watching your highest institutions fail, and realizing, you know, if not me, then who, you know, and realizing that you can play a part, because as a EEP alum, you know, I've been the youngest person in the room a lot of the time. I'm very small, I'm 5'1", and so to a lot of people, and to me, I've been the little girl who's been around, and just, this has given me such confidence in myself and my ability to, you know, at least try hard as hell to make change, and know that me caring actually means something, because when institutions don't care, this is what we get. And so I found that to be very inspiring and motivating, and that's what gives me hope that other people might feel the same way too.
I think for me, the move to virtual, I really think that we could, if we actually do the work, see some of the incredible resources in the US we have being made available to other countries. Like, there is no reason that somebody should need to be physically present now that we've moved 9/10 of our, you know, economic and social infrastructure to Zoom. And if we can hold on to that, that's immense hope, at least for global justice.
Thank you so much to our panelists for joining us today and sharing all of these really amazing and perspectives. Apologies, we did get a question from one of our audience members, but if it's okay to the audience member, we have your info and we'll get the response to that question to you. That's okay. And so with that, I wanted to once again thank the panelists, thank the audience for you know, listening in on this, and want to turn it back to Rennie just to close off the event and offer some final remarks. So thank you. Thanks everyone so much.
And so I appreciate the hopeful tone of these last comments, because I personally am less optimistic, I think, than others that the American people can step up to the plate and make the kind of transformative changes in their institutions, in their budget models, and in the way in which they think about human beings outside of the United States. So I'm appreciative of a younger generation that's joined us this evening, and their hopefulness, their optimism, and their desire to make a difference. It is important to recognize that if change is going to happen, You can't wait around for someone else to do it. You have to step up and do your part, and not be fearful that what you've done won't be respected, understood, or practiced. The consequences are left on others. The responsibility is for us to say and to do on our own part. And I really want to extend my appreciation to our panelists and to Dr. Pham for guiding our thinking and reflections on the consequences of living through the time of COVID and what it might mean for the future. Many thanks to our audience for joining us this evening. I appreciate your attendance, and I'm sure you, as I, appreciated what we gained this evening. We have a third event, Zoom-based, that will celebrate our 10th anniversary. It will be taking place in April 29, and we will be emailing details, and some of those details will be posted on a closing slide in a minute. Thanks again to panelists, to Trin, and to our guests, and have a good evening.